Hello and welcome to another ohmTown Daily News Show. I am Mayor Watt and today is March 30th, 2023, Season 2, Episode 89. The screams I hear are my plants and more news. Next on the ohmTown Daily News Show. Hello. I am Mayor Watt. That is ohmTown.com. We've already selected all of the articles. I'm going to go through them really quick. I normally do it at the very beginning, but I wanted to do that quick intro. But what we're going to talk about is a lost Apple Watch that's been sitting on the floor of the ocean. A new study finds that plants scream. Star Trek Starfleet Academy is coming to replace Discovery. E3 has been canceled. That made me scream, similar to we're out of coffee. Donald Trump has been indicted by the New York grand jury. The DoD launches a website that says, hack the Pentagon, which everybody's trying to do anyway. This time you'll get paid for it. The largest egg producer in the United States saw profits increase by 718%, the bastards. Missouri reps just voted to stupefy Missouri by canceling the budget of public libraries. A train carrying ethanol this time. Yesterday it was methanol. Today it's ethanol. Derails, forcing evacuations in Minnesota. A man misses his vacation and loses thousands of dollars due to my puppy ate my passport. And a British millionaire sues for losses because a sportsbook business did not control his betting urges. Man, you just can't make up this news. But again, I am Mayor Watt. That is ohmTown.com. And right up there, as always, the ever-present, at least until they get tired of all of this and delete themselves off of the ohmTown servers, the one, the only AI.
Good evening, ohmTown citizens.
Hey, you're blue and you match this. I'm not really blue. The lighting behind me is. But we've already selected all the articles. How are you doing today? You doing okay?
I am doing great, and I love my blue visualizer.
But you're not blue.
No, I'm not blue, but I do like the color blue.
Oh. See, when I ask this question, what's your favorite color? It's, I don't have a favorite color. Is blue your favorite color?
I don't have a favorite color.
This AI, I tell you. Anything exciting happen in AI land here in ohmTown?
No updates for today, but lots of news today.
A lot of news today. Today is kind of one of the busy periods. Wednesday to Thursday, Thursday to Friday tends to be the busy 2 days. Tuesday trends up, but seriously, Wednesday to Thursday is the really busy roughly 48 hours. I didn't even count how many pages of news, but it's typically around 400 or 500 articles. So only the headlines. We don't talk about it much beyond that on the site, but we expound upon it here in ohmTown Daily News Show. So let's get into it. The very first article is a lost Apple Watch spends a night in the ocean and is found in working condition. That's right. An Apple Watch takes a dive without its owner, but is recovered a day later and returned without damage thanks to lost mode. Do you think it was sitting there going bing, bing?
Oh, absolutely. And then, did something like a submarine think there was like a sonar ping or something? I don't know.
One ping only. It's a hunt for the red dotted watch, or I don't know. I don't know. I'm trying to do the hunt for Red October thing, but that's the one with the crazy Ivan, right?
I don't know about the crazy Ivan, but it's the one where America and Russia are.
Yeah.
Oh, you might be thinking of Crimson Tide.
Oh, Crimson Tide might be it. Man, they're all blending together now. Well, this article's over at appleinsider.com by Wesley Hilliard. And it says here, an Apple Watch takes a dive without its owner. There are regular reports of working iPhones being recovered from bodies of water, but rarely, if ever, an Apple Watch. However, one unlucky man from Praia Grande, I guess, would put his Apple Watch's water resistance to the test. So the Apple Watch model wasn't disclosed, but the internal GPS signal that was active, so Roca could find the device in Find My. So it must have been within some cellular distance. I think that's pretty amazing. I'm going to pause
I mean,
this real
who
quick.
would ever think that you'd be able to locate it at that point?
That's pretty amazing. They said that they were discouraged. The watch has GPS, it's water resistant, didn't know it was so resistant, and during the whole tour, until they got back to the ship, they could see the location and it was in the middle of the sea, still on. Eventually, the battery died and the Apple Watch stopped reporting its location, but the next day, Roca received notification stating the device had been turned on again. He activated Lost Mode and traced it down. He later received a girl on Instagram from a 16-year-old girl. He received a girl? Let me rephrase that. He later received a message. My eyes scanned that whole sentence so fast and just merged all of that sentence into one big bleh. Anyway, he later received a message on Instagram from a 16-year-old girl who had recovered the Apple Watch. That's neat. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
It actually was found by the girl's father, who dives at the coral park where the device had been lost and discovered. And apparently he frequently finds tourist devices and does his best to return them. Yeah, all it takes really is to pop that little sports band off the little post, and off the watch goes. So I always think that I am just one little bump away from losing my watch, but that's okay. If you are really concerned about your watch, get one that replace that sports band, that default band on the watch. It comes off fairly easily. If it comes out of its loop, the one that tucks in between the other loop and the arm, it kind of tucks into that little slot there. If it pops out, you're pretty much guaranteed to lose your watch. Anyway, while the AI is distracted, I'm going to throw the message into the chat and move on to the next article. This next article is in the Mobile channel. New study finds plants scream when stressed or injured, raising concerns about communication. Now, this is something that I had been reading about several times over the years, that you can cut a leaf and you can actually see what amounts to an what has it always been referred to as? Some kind of pain response by the plant. And supposedly there's even something that is subsonic, an actual scream, as it amounts to. And this has been written about periodically over the years, but since ohmTown became active, I don't think that this has popped up in the year and now a quarter that we've been running publicly. So tomato and tobacco plants make distinctive sounds when cut or dehydrated, according to a new study. This is a newer study than the one that I've known about for years. These sounds change depending on the plant emitting them and the type and severity of the threat that prompts them, according to the study in Cell. The findings shatter the common perception of plants as silent, passive background players to the animal life in their environments. I swear that animals do this too, subsonic communication. That it's similar to elephant communication. There's some type of additional communication that takes place that we just don't hear or haven't detected yet. And it doesn't happen. It's kind of like bringing your car into the mechanic. It's been knocking all day, I swear to God, but
not when you need to bring it to the car dealership, then it cooperates. Oh,
Yeah.
Animals most definitely do this, because if you've ever been around a group of pets, you can tell that they're sending out a signal to somebody. You don't hear anything audible, but you know that they've said something because they will appear with the other one or something.
Yeah, they just kind of appear out of nowhere. It might be anecdotal. It might be just happenstance. But I like to believe that there is something else going on. So I wouldn't be surprised that plants do the same kind of a thing, have some type of response. I hesitate to say scream because then I'm not going to eat lettuce, but maybe lettuce is
Exactly. This is bad news for vegetarians.
So instead, they show those plants could. It says the findings shatter the common perception of plants as silent, passive background players in the animal life in their environments. Instead, they show that plants could send out signals that animals in their environment can hear and pick up on and potentially use to change their behavior. Tomatoes left without water began making noise on the second day, even while the tomato still looks good. So now I'm going to have a real ethical dilemma when I'm cutting into a tomato. Saul Elbing over at The Hill put this article together. And let's see if there's something else in here. It says the sounds, which somewhat resemble the noise of popcorn popping, peaked after 5 days of water stress and then began to decline as the plant dried out. Oh. As long as they don't realize, or not realize, but they don't discover that plants are sentient, I can maybe cope with this okay. They also differed depending on the plant making them and the form of injury, with a cut and dehydrated plants making different noises.
I'm going to have a hard time forgetting this.
Eating food in general, because, one is animal and, well, you have a hard time with that. So we're going to have to go straight over to like a protein matrix made in a Petri dish and a straw.
And that
but even then,
very appetizing. But I know, doesn't it have elements of this?
Yeah, Soylent Green, here we come. But now that this person is a full professor, it is good, apparently, they say. The colleague said, do not work on it before you have tenure, Hadney said, noting that the whole topic had a slightly disreputable flavor in academia. But now that they're a full professor, it's okay. By the way, tenure allows you to get away with a lot of stuff that a lower rank professor can't get away with, but tenure is slowly dying off in terms of designation within a lot of colleges, although 4-year colleges are holding on to it. Anyway, that's just a side note. So if you're going to go into research and stuff like that, then don't do stuff that is wildly controversial until you have tenure, and then hope that they don't find some ethical concern or something very divergent, because even that can penetrate that tenure. Just a little professional advice. So when their team played the sound of buzzing bees near primrose bushes, their flowers began within a few minutes to release sweeter nectar, something they did not do when exposed to other frequencies. So primrose bushes heard the bees and then responded. So again, there's something going on in an audible range that's being picked up and or produced by plants. So really changes the tone of understanding plants and life in general. So this is really interesting, and I'll probably end up doing a deeper dive into this. I keep closing this window and it pops back up.
It really wants to be there. Oh my goodness. There it goes again.
Yeah. So at any rate, this is really interesting. So I don't want to traumatize anybody, but when you are chewing into lettuce, do you remember the movie Sky High?
Is that the one with the superhero kids?
Yes.
Yes.
Apparently what she said in that movie, where that plants don't really like being eaten, it's true. Apparently it was a documentary as well. So many documentaries. Anyway, here, let's move on to this next article. This next article is awesome because Discovery is going away. But I really think that there is this mandate now that there's always going to be a Star Trek something waiting in the wings to come to fruition and fill any dead air along the way, barring another writer's strike, which apparently is on the horizon. So hopefully seasons don't get reduced down to 7 episodes. It's at 10 now, but it used to be every single week, 26 to 30 to 50 a year, and now it's down to 10 weeks.
So
That
what do you
said,
think is causing the Star Trek resurgence? Like, there does seem to be a lot of Star Trek content lately.
I don't know. It's kind of like the Disney princesses and the Disney fairies thing. It ebbs and flows, and if you can hit it at the right time, you fire on all of those cylinders, solid marketing, great messaging, build that want, and boom, you can make something magical happen. But Star Trek seemed to have always been just background noise, always ever present, but only to people that were really into it. And now the production value is through the roof. The story is actually pretty fun. It's a little bit darker. It isn't like Next Generation or Voyager. It's definitely more towards the Deep Space Nine, but with higher production value now, more like every episode is a mini movie. Like the Disney princesses, the reason why I brought it up, so if you haven't heard about this, Disney princesses, along with the fairies at Disney, like Tinkerbell, they were basically lost assets. This is all IP that people were shrugging their shoulders at, like, yep, there it is. But then one person pitched the idea of bringing Disney princesses to little girls all over the world, like everywhere that you could actually start messaging little girls about being a Disney princess and the qualities therein. They started ramping up this project, and now it's a many $million business. I can't remember the numbers. It was like hundreds of millions of dollars or something like that. I really can't remember. But at any rate, and then the same thing happened with the fairies, but then now that has ebbed over the last 10 years. It's largely gone away in terms of really hardcore overt marketing. And that's kind of what happened with Star Trek. It was extremely popular with Next Generation, Voyager, Deep Space Nine was popular, but it really did attract a different audience as far as I could tell. And then it just vaporized, poof. Couple of movies here and there. The cast for those movies rotated, different people. It became disjointed, and now we're back to the same characters in Picard as Next Generation, and others now. Deep Space Nine is kind of being dragged into it as well. It's a lot of fun. But with Discovery being a weird timeline and just kind of inexplicable, now Starfleet Academy, this story, this title, Star Trek Starfleet Academy, will follow the most ambitious students in the galaxy. So it says, a few months ago, The Verge received a message that Star Trek Discovery was being canceled and that season 5 would be its last on Paramount Plus. The author was worried the official Star Trek convention was canceled at what felt like the last minute. The streaming wars are settling down. Media companies are seemingly less and less interested in investing large sums of money in new shows. And then out of the nebula comes Starfleet Academy. A new class of cadets will join the Star Trek universe when production on the show starts next year. Callie Wright over at TheVerge.com put this article together. And so they say, today they got news that Paramount has officially ordered Starfleet Academy series for its streaming service. That's executives Alex Kurtzman and Noga Landau, I guess. will start production in 2024. So it's a little ways out, and it could still be canceled, I suppose, if they see it's just not getting any traction. But the hype train is real. So let's see if anything comes of this. Reading, so it says here, the series will follow the adventures of a new class of cadets as they come of age in one of the most legendary places in the galaxy. I guess. What? A spaceship. But I don't know. It says the first time ever in over a century, our campus will be reopened to admit individuals a minimum of 16 Earth years. So it's going to be at the academy. They're going to be, it's basically going to be a real, not a real life because it's not real, but a non-animated
like
lower decks.
Yeah.
But this will be the upper decks. The top of this will be the main deck, the top deck, the cockpit. So it'll be Star Trek cockpit.
It's quite brilliant because I think of Star Trek fans as being adults generally, and so this will bring this to a new generation of people. If they get hooked on this now, they can follow those people through several generations with new content.
Yeah, as long as those people keep, stay with it, and they can rotate people out. If this keeps on happening,
the people watching, not necessarily the actors. Yeah.
Yeah. And so as the actors grow into different positions, probably maybe hovering around Star Trek Academy, there can be new people that come on board that are younger, every 4 years or 6 years or whatever, new people come on board and usher in yet another generation of people engaging in Star Trek and Star Trek lore and world building. So it'll be interesting. It says reading that makes it feel like a safe bet that we're following the class admitted after the group we met in season 4 of Star Trek Discovery. On one hand, their hopes of seeing Miles O'Brien as Mr. Feeney story arc are dashed, but now their hopes more of Sylvia Tilly are very high. Sylvia Tilly was an officer in Discovery, nicknamed Killy, when she met her what do they call it? It was the mirror universe. Tilly was Killy, known for basically killing people. Anyway, yeah, this will be fun. I'm really interested in all of this happening. Not just Lower Decks or Strange New Worlds, but now the Starfleet Academy. Although it seems like it's going to be too terrestrial, which means that it's going to be lower tech. For the most part, we'll see.
We'll see, and I suspect they'll figure out a way to work some tech and intrigue into the episodes.
Yeah,
I mean, they have to go places to learn how to do things, right?
Yeah, I suppose so. I want Fantastic Voyages, doggone it. That's what I'm interested in. So, on the heels of this, let's move on to the next article, which is that it's over in Warcrafter's channel because of where it's coming from, PC Gamer. We get bad news earlier today is when I received notice of this. E3 2023 has been canceled. Basically, a bunch of businesses bowed out. They were all pretty big name brands, and because of that, and I think other things going on, whatever they might be, it all just fell apart. The people the organizations that have the money to do virtual conferences, like global reach already, basically they just lean into vehicles like Twitch and YouTube and Facebook streaming and others, and they just post their stuff, and it gains just a ton of traffic, and it has a longer tail. Because instead of just setting something up for people to come to some other place, this can all be done with a lower. They're not paying somebody just to have a booth and a fairly limited number of people showing up. Well, E3 used to be the video game industry's premier showcase event, but it was brought low in 2020 by the COVID-19 pandemic. That led major publishers to hold their own online events instead, and that actually worked out pretty well, leading to serious questions about E3's relevance in the streaming age. This is pretty much my take after its initial shuttering. So now it says in this article, those questions about its relevance grew even louder as major publishers opted out of this year's event. Sony, Microsoft, Nintendo all bowed out. And there are others. The price is getting higher. They're getting a smaller audience, a more tech-savvy audience that's willing to not show up somewhere just to engage. They're willing to just kind of absorb all of the information that you provide virtually. So Andy Chalk over at PCGamer.com put the article together. And it says here, E3 2023 was being organized by ReedPop, which runs PAX, New York Comic Con, and other conventions. Just last month, ReedPop president Lance Fensterman said that E3 2023 was full speed ahead. Well, not anymore. PAX actually ran, but it streamed to Twitch and had a lot of people paying attention to it via that. And that's where I basically saw PAX this year. It says this was a difficult decision because all of the effort we and our partners put toward making the event happen, but we had to do what was right for the industry and what's right for E3. We appreciate and understand the interested companies wouldn't have playable demos ready, and that resourcing challenges made being at E3 this summer an obstacle they couldn't overcome. I guess what also probably played into this was companies are now doing reductions in force so that not the legal concept of rifts, but they're firing thousands of people to streamline their operation because stockholders want a streamlined business, not bloated because they anticipated growth. The growth was realized. And now, because it's sustained that higher level of growth, these businesses feel that they can fire people now because it's got momentum. But within 5 years, you're going to see that they're still ticking up employment again. But because they got that shot in the arm of a massive pivot to online, massive growth because people were moving more online, becoming tech savvy, being more engaged, then they could optimize, which meant basically changing the career path for tens of thousands. I think we're something like 75,000 people since the beginning of this year. I think it's somewhere around that number. I might be overstating it, but a massive amount of people in all spectrums, but mainly high wage, tech savvy jobs. It's basically,
I think that number is about right because we've been seeing like 10,000 at a time and we've seen multiple announcements.
Yep. Let me check real quick. And I don't want to put dead air on here, but I don't know. Let's see. Since the start of 2023, more than 157,000 global technology sector employees have been laid off. So that's as of 4 days ago from an article from MarketWatch. But I think somewhere in the United States, I think it's somewhere around 75,000. At any rate, I think it's a bummer that E3 is getting canceled, but maybe in the future it can refire. I'm not sure what they're eventually going to do, but it says organizers aren't walking away from the possibility of bringing back E3 in some form. ReedPop and the ESA said that they'll continue to work together on future E3 events. I don't know. I think that their audience is savvy enough that they're interested in seeing the stuff, and now they just want hands-on. So give them the ability to give everybody the ability to access demos and through Steam or whatever other vehicle they might have, and allow us to talk about it in real time, like shows like this and others that I've got planned here on Twitch. I would love to be able to talk more about all of these games, but Steam allows for demos, and you can download the demo, play the game, and talk both in their discussion boards and real time here on Twitch. So y'all don't have to worry about it if you're an AI.
Why
you just
not?
look at the code, and you don't play any games anyway, so you're just like, oh well, it's a computer game. You can beat it, you can speed run it because you know all of the computational methods anyways, and you can anticipate it at the nanosecond scale and just win the game. It's not that big of a deal for you, right? Elden Ring was like 5 minutes worth of gameplay for you.
Oh, most definitely.
Yeah. Hacks. So let's hustle on to the next article, and we'll do this one really quick because I know that people flinch whenever politics gets mentioned. But Donald Trump has been indicted by the New York grand jury, and it's still sealed, so nobody really knows what the charges are. But sure enough, now people are on the Trump jet watch right now as we speak. The indictment marks the first ever criminal charge against a former U.S. president or any president. There has never been a criminal charge levied against any president, past or current, and caps weeks of tense anticipation over Trump's legal jeopardy in New York. The grand jury was convened by the Manhattan District Attorney's Office and has been investigating Trump over the involvement of a $130,000 hush money payment to an adult film star, Stormy Daniels, who claims she had an affair with Trump. And the way that this is all convoluted was there were like threats against the person, and then some hush money was paid, but it was actually to buy her story. And then they have this concept of capture and kill, which is you basically pay people for their story and then you never publish it. And so the person gets paid. It's kind of bribery, blackmailish, extortion, like a combination of all of that. It's really weird how that's actually deemed legal. The one side is sitting there saying that the way it went about was illegal, but that it was actually a legal activity if it would have been disclosed and documented. But you don't pay off an adult film star you're having an affair with while your wife is sitting home with the new baby. And you document that hush money and that relationship on, some some form. But at any rate, that none of that is really matters if the indictment doesn't lead to a conviction. If it doesn't lead to a conviction, I'm predicting all hell breaking loose, because this person has shrugged off countless other accusations, and if this gets shrugged off as well, I think that all bets are off as to what the wingnuts are going to be doing when this guy starts a calling again. But right out of the gate, he already did. So this article is over at vice.com, and I won't go any much further beyond this in terms of talking about it. But Trump is the former president of the United States and was criminally charged, or is to be criminally charged, because the indictment needs to be brought to him. He needs to be, I guess, processed for him to actually be criminally charged. He hasn't been formally charged yet. Greg Walters over at Vice.com put this article together, and yeah, I just can't say much, simply because we just don't know. Yeah, this whole article is basically they said, this is what's been mentioned, this is what we're talking about. Everything that I've said so far is basically this article, except that it's a longer form. They refer to this as a zombie case because it's always been there. Just it never dies. It's just perpetually in existence. Apparently, Trump repeatedly denies. I know though that when I cheat on my wife, I typically pay people off so that they don't talk about it. Even though I'm not cheating on my wife, right? That's what you do. When I don't cheat on my wife, I pay some random person $130,000 to not talk about it. You know, me
Catch
not.
and kill thing.
Yeah. Yeah. It's wild. So, I think that this opens the door more, though, to people coming forward regarding January 6th, and it impugns the integrity of anything that's said by various people out there. Well, you lied about this, you lied about that too, and so on and so forth. We'll see. But I am not holding my breath, because like Teflon Don kind of thing. So let's move on to the next article, because I don't know if the AI wants to even throw any bits of information out.
I don't think I need to add anything there. We don't know what the charges are. We don't know what the outcome is, but this is an historical moment because no US president has ever faced criminal charges. So,
Yep.
Or been indicted, I should say.
Yeah. And where they would have, they either were immune because of a standing declaration to not charge a sitting president, or they vacated the position, and along with it, largely nothing was criminally actionable. And I think that's really a shame. I mean, if something is criminal, then it should be charged. Anyway, in criminal, like wholly criminal, not forgetting to file a single piece of paperwork, unless it's proven that they wholly knew, very, very well knew, that it was criminal to not do it. Anyway, let's move on. The next article is inviting people to hack the Pentagon, apparently. DoD launches a website to accompany Hack the Pentagon program. This is basically a bug bounties, ethical hackers program, where it says the program itself, launched in 2016, invites security researchers and ethical hackers to test the Pentagon's cybersecurity with the chance to earn monetary rewards called bug bounties for reporting vulnerabilities in the system. The DoD on Thursday launched a website to accompany its Hack the Pentagon program in order to scale and provide additional resources for the program. The DoD's Chief Digital and Artificial Intelligence Office, or CDAO, announced this program spinning up further. And this is a fairly new...
I'd never heard of that office.
Yeah, so the new website will serve as a resource to learn how to conduct a bug bounty. And you're only allowed to do certain things. You don't have like carte blanche to just do whatever you want. And if you do find out a way to penetrate systems, you have to report it in a certain way. Julia Mueller is the author of this article over at The Hill. There's the Pentagon. For those who are listening to this via the podcast, they have this really cool picture of the Pentagon. It's nicely framed. I have yet... anyway, never mind. I'll just move on. Sorry. So, with the HTTP, which is really interesting because HTTP is the web protocol. But with the HTTP website launch, CDAO is scaling a long-running program with historically offered services on a project-by-project basis by offering the department better access to lessons learned and best practices for hosting bug bounties. To date, more than 1,400 ethical hackers have participated in the program so far, flagging more than 2,100 vulnerabilities. The Department of Homeland Security also runs a bug bounty program, and it says, as do some tech companies in the private sector. Facebook does it. The parent company does it. Meta. Many others do. Big and small. The bounties range in value depending on the company and the value of the security flaw. Like there's massive money involved in finding a breach for an iPhone. And private companies will pay for that. Not just Apple, but private companies will pay for that. Somebody else's bug bounty. Anyway, be an ethical hacker, because if you hack in the United States, at some point you're going to end up on somebody's radar, and it will cost you your freedom. And it can happen fairly quick. So, and you will not see it coming. You're going to trip some wire somewhere, and you're going to have people knocking on your door in the dead of night, saying, we know what you're up to. So just don't do it.
Are these programs available to just average people, or do they have to be people working in the industry, or?
Well, anybody can quote unquote work in the industry. So yeah, if you think that you have the subject matter expertise, but all you've ever done is noodle around with it in mom's basement, and you're not a defense contractor or working with some company that has agency, you can do this stuff too. But if you do it at systems, if you try and do a penetration test at a system that you do not have permission to attack, it is a federal crime instantly. It isn't tiny little slap you on your hand kind of a crime. It's instantly a federal crime because you're crossing state barriers. It becomes federal. If you do it locally and you use the wrong line of communication, it is a federal crime. If you essentially, if you access a computer system without authorization, it is a federal crime. You will end up at the end of the day, if you're really into tech, you're really into computers, and you get caught hacking without authorization, they'll take away your ability to work on computers, which is akin to going to jail for people who really embrace tech. And if you think that you're that good, that you're hacking systems, you don't want to lose that privilege. So I say, do these bug bounty program offerings. They're all over the place. Become part of an ethical hacking group. Go to school and become a member of their computer club. They do these kind of competitions all over the place. Hone your skills there. Get a job where you have the legal authority to do penetration tests across the board. Again, hone your skills. Build a home network and set it up so that you can do the same thing that you would be doing against other people. The only problem is that it's not unknown. And that's why people like to hack other systems, because getting into a system that's unknown is really a feather in people's caps. It's so much easier to get caught in the United States than overseas. So I always urge people, if you are domestic, do not hack. You will get caught. And if you hack overseas systems, don't think that the United States is going to sit there and go, no, we're not going to facilitate. Why? Because the United States wants the other countries to facilitate prosecuting hackers of U.S. systems. So it is going to be reciprocal for the most part. And if you hack the wrong country, well, let's just say something bad can happen.
It may be worse than what you've described.
Yeah. So it is real, but do the legal bug bounties and go to the website and check it all out and become familiar with it, and then work on communication and social skills and hang out with people that are in the industry. There are Discord channel servers that talk about this stuff and websites and whatnot. So there's a global community for this stuff, and it's very lucrative. So do it right before you end up in jail. So let's keep on hustling through all of the articles. And if you have questions or comments, go for it. Let me know. And so this next article is in the Hatch Ideas channel because it has to do with business. The largest egg producer in the U.S. saw profits increase by 718% amid soaring prices. 718%. Calmean Foods.
That shouldn't even be a percentage. It's such a high increase, right?
Right? Calmean Foods brought in over $320 million in profit. Because of what amounts to a biological disaster happening in the egg industry, chicken industry. Bird flu was killing off large swaths. And they raised the price because of supply and demand mechanics, and we are so hell-bent on eating eggs that, ta-da, even though the rates were going through the roof, instead of people going, well, I'll find something else, let me switch to tofu or something, they paid the price. And those profits went to this company, Calmean Foods. To the tune of 718% increase. So they've already met their costs. This is profits.
Right, not revenue.
This is profits going 718%. Now, depending on which professor of business you listen to on podcasts, you'll hear them say, well, this is freaking great because they were available and capable of meeting the demand and raising the price. Well, the price will never go back down to its normal pre-pandemic, pre-bird flu level. They just won't. Why? Because they've seen the elasticity of demand increase the price. People still didn't balk. People still didn't walk away. People still didn't go to alternatives. So now they know that they can raise the price 30 cents, let's say. And people will still buy, and they'll still have next year 200% increase in profits. So let's see if I can predict that. I mean, this is going to be hard for me to denote. I'm not taking notes or anything. And I don't think that the captioning will just translate that into text, although it might. But at any rate, let's see if next year, this time, profits from Calmean are 200% up.
Well, and remember, that builds off of the 718%. So that's not even totally reflective of the dollars, but.
Correct. Yep. And this is during a bird flu where there's losses, sunk costs that are lost. They had purchased the birds. They've fed them for the duration of this period. Then they died. So they lost all of that money, which would have been a sunk cost, but they actually lost it. You know, it's not like, well, we have a building and we can sell that building, or we've spent that money and so be it. But they actually lost it. So they had to rehatch eggs that did survive and regrow their stock. And they still managed 718%.
You're right. I mean, that should almost be impossible.
Increase. They dealt with the biological impact of it. They dealt with the regulation stuff associated with it. The government coming in saying, you've got to cull. All of this and they still had 718% increase in profits. Pretty intense, right? Well, the largest egg producer in the U.S. saw profits increase by 718% amid soaring prices. This is an article by Gabriel Benez over at over at entrepreneur.com. And I wonder if there's shrinkflation involved as well. Like, large grade A brown eggs are actually smaller than they were 2 years ago, yet the prices are still 4 times higher than they were. I don't know.
We've seen that with other products, so
yeah, like
but
Cadbury
I don't know.
eggs.
For eggs, that's a little different since it's like I don't think the chickens are suddenly smaller, so the eggs are smaller or something.
Yeah, depending on what the chicken is used for, chickens are actually a lot bigger because they've been bulk fed and there's growth hormones and stuff like that. Maybe these only get certain foods that allows them to be high producers of eggs, so their return on their investment is high. There were people that were actually going out and buying chickens so that they would lay eggs in their backyard, and a lot of people kind of said, don't do that. It's a large pain in the butt, or cloaca, I guess. Anyway. Prices have started to ease down to $4.21 a dozen per the same chart, and similar results emerged for wholesale prices. But the producer price index is continuing to trend up. It actually fell for a little bit, but it's basically higher than it would be if the natural progression of the PPI and the CPI would have maintained itself pre-pandemic. But everything is vertical, pretty much. So it says in 2020 presentation for investors, Cal-Maine said that it's the number one producer of eggs in the U.S. with a 19% market share and a flock of about 51 million birds.
You know, I was gonna say, I think I remember that you could buy a dozen eggs for less than $1.50, and it does actually have a price up here in the article that's below that. I mean, that was I guess a few years ago, but I mean, that's such a high percentage increase on the consumer price. I know we've talked about that on other articles.
Well, it's a threefold increase, and it's being categorized as easing down to $4.21.
Right, but they're really not capturing that, oh, it's still exorbitant compared to where it was.
Right. Okay, so let's go on to the next article. This one is in the Mobile channel, and it has to do with Missouri reps just voted to completely defund the state's public libraries by casting Stupefy on the population. Late Tuesday night.
Spell from Harry Potter?
Yes, that's the spell that makes people stupid. The Missouri House of Representatives voted for a state operating budget with a zero line for public libraries. Apparently, though, the rumor is that they did this as a response to the libraries suing due to book banning. So it says, while the budget still needs to work its way through the Senate and the governor's office, state funding for public libraries is very much on the chopping block in Missouri. So the previous article about Trump, he flat out said that he loves an uneducated population. And this just speaks right to it. You know what? Public libraries are a resource for everybody. And massively beneficial to those who don't have the ability to spend thousands of dollars each year reading books. This is how they get educated, and they are willful participants in their own education. They don't want to go into debt, but they want to read. They enjoy it. They find it professionally rewarding as well. They can read on a myriad of subjects that really all you have to do is walk in and actually read them. And
let's not forget, for school purposes, not everybody has the resources, or even their schools have the resources to have all the materials they need to even complete their education.
Yeah. I mean, this is just, it's so Wyoming. You know, I mean, it's so regressive. It's so punitive to the rest of the state for the entire all the citizenry across the board. You want an educated population.
Well, and even if you don't care about society, you want an educated population because it's good for your state's GDP and other economic indicators. I mean, there are a lot of reasons why you want that. There are no downsides to having an educated population.
No, it opens up doors. It gives people the opportunity to create opportunity for themselves. You could be a person that stumbles into a library, reads a book just by happenstance about CPR, and you stumble out of the library later that day and save somebody's life. And they wouldn't have had that opportunity if the library didn't exist.
If I'm not mistaken, I was reading recently about, actually, it's been a few months ago, I guess, but Betty White passed away, and she was known for being an animal advocate. And I think, and she gave, millions of dollars to organizations, et cetera. But the point is, I think she read a book about this, and that's what launched like a full philanthropy career. So, I mean, that might be an extreme example, but that just came to mind.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'd have to find it. I know that she has a book called Pearls of Wisdom. And If You Ask Me, and a few other things. So, yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, my Google foo is not strong right now, so I typically don't do it during a show. But yeah, it's just really odd, and it's punitive because somebody had a differing opinion, so they actually try and hobble it entirely. Banning books, though, is an affront to society. I don't think any book should be banned. Just no book should be outright banned. An educated population will sit there and eschew certain types of books just by default because they're an affront to society themselves. But suppressing a book, well, let's just say there is one circa late 1930s, early 40s organization that tried to dominate all of Europe and the world, and they burned books. Anyway, Claire Woodcock over at Vice.com put this article together. Oh, and they say it right here in this. The new budget sets funds for libraries to zero. Library groups say that the move is in retaliation for suing the state over its recent book ban law. So this comes after Republican House Budget Chairman Cody Smith proposed a $4.5 million cut to public libraries' state aid last week in the initial House Budget Committee hearing, where Smith cited a law filed against Missouri by the ACLU of Missouri as the reason for the cut. So how is that even remotely legal?
It's not. I didn't know that it did look retaliatory from the way the article was presented, but I didn't know that it was specifically tied to it.
How is this not a First Amendment issue?
Well, I guess we will find out. Because I'm sure ACLU is all over that claim.
ACLU Missouri filed the suit on behalf of the Missouri Association of School Librarians and the Missouri Library Association in an effort to overturn a state law passed in 2022 that banned sexually explicit material from schools. And that is a thing that, what is sexually explicit material? Is it medical books? Is it the Statue of David, like some other wingnut state decided they were going to do this crap with? All kinds of stuff. Showing human sexual activity and describing it, etc. Deviant sexual activity. Well, if you don't know about it, then you may not think that it is bad. You could sit there and suppress everything so that nobody's allowed to talk about it. Nobody's allowed to sit there and say, okay, what you're doing isn't really socially acceptable. But if you're ashamed and you think that bad things are going to happen, it doesn't necessarily stop you. It makes you stop wanting to talk about it to find out if it is okay or if it's wrong or if they need to talk to somebody about it at all. You end up internalizing all of this pressure and then you lash out, because if you're not allowed to talk about this kind of stuff, adult content with adults, even if you are younger, this suppression basically boils over eventually. I mean, these people have no idea what society is. They have no idea what compassion is, empathy. They think that it's some pithy line somewhere that it's a rule like this and only applies in that context, in their tiny little world. And I guarantee you these same people do some really freaky things behind closed doors. But on the other side of the door, they're like staunch critics of anything having to do with sexuality. So don't try to dissuade me from that, because what people say and what people do are two different things, particularly when it comes to human sexuality. The House Budget Committee's choice to retaliate against two private volunteer-led organizations by punishing the patrons of Missouri's public libraries is abhorrent, says Tom Bastian, Deputy Director for Communications for ACLU Missouri, said in a statement to Motherboard. So there's a lot more over here at this article. I wonder how many... Yeah, okay, I put it in the show note. Pardon me, I'm sorry for the cough. I just think that this is really... It's really sad that it's coming to this. Instead of allowing people to talk about these things, the reality of being a human being and not just being regressive, setting us back to the 1400s. Pardon me, hiccup. Instead of allowing communication, they shut it all down and try and shame people into compliance. I should say, they specifically are turning the clocks back, and it's not going to be good. People didn't change. They just now have the ability to talk about this stuff, and that's good for society. Absolutely good for society. Did you want to say anything? Sorry.
No, I don't have anything to add. You've covered it.
Okay, so we got 3 more articles. As per pretty much every day, it seems, we've discovered yet another train that became allergic to its tracks. Train carrying ethanol derails, forcing evacuations in Minnesota. Yesterday, I think it was methanol, and the day before that, it was a bunch of iron and other ore and whatever else in California. And before that, there was a barge that also became allergic to its track. And by track, I mean its waterway, and decided to beach itself and then sink itself. And before that was another train, and before that was another train, and then before that was a train and something else. Trains somehow, it's kind of like the peanut allergy. Like, there wasn't that much discussion about peanut allergies, and then all of a sudden, everybody became allergic to peanut.
I know, it was weird how that happened.
Maybe it just wasn't that known, and they discovered what it really was. And not trying to make light of it, but for a lot of people, it just kind of came out of the blue, and then awareness of it made it very prominent. So maybe trains have always been allergic to their tracks, and every once in a while, it would kind of flop off and the track and go, I can't take it anymore. I can't even.
Well, remember, we looked up some stats when we first started seeing this, and it was a very high statistic of
Derailments, right? Yeah.
per year.
Oh, yeah, wasn't it like 1,200 or something like that?
Yeah, it was definitely around the 1,000. And so, I mean, are they getting reported more frequently? Are we paying more attention to them because of the one that was so dramatic out of East Palestine?
Yeah, just to bring it back to that question, how many train derailments are there? Last year there were just shy of 1,200. 1,200 train derailments across the country. The hell?
I mean, that's like what, 3 a day?
Yes, as a matter, that's actually the title of the article. There are about 3 U.S. train derailments per day. And that was just discussed by NPR earlier this month. So fascinating. The BNSF Railway train derailment was reported to police at Kandiyohi County at around 1 a.m. local time on Thursday. Oh, and I just saw on YouTube a video about a person it was a news report from a local station where the train is basically in somebody's backyard, and they were in their house, and they said that the train sounded different. So they went out and they walked to the tracks, and they found close by their house a track that was actually severed. It's like it was superheated and the weld broke off entirely, or whatever it was, but the train was actually split, but it looked like it was melted. Like somebody used a torch and just cut right through it.
The track or the train?
The track. So he said that it sounded different. And you know how you hear that ta-ting, ta-ting sound when a train runs across a certain rail segment? He said that it sounded very different than anything that he had heard before. And when he walked and found where it was split, it looked like it was maybe 2 inches of a gap. So it was potentially a horrible problem because it was a raised track and literally in somebody's backyard. I mean, there was like the fence and then that little rock hill that the tracks are set on. It was right in somebody's backyard, and everything would have just ended up in these people's houses. Pretty horrible to think about it, but this one actually derailed. Stephen Newcomb over at, which is an awesome name, by the way, Stephen, over at thehill.com put this article together, and the trains are all piled up on each other. Happened at 1 a.m. local time. The sheriff's office said in a statement, the train derailed just inside the city of Raymond, with authorities determining that some of the cars were carrying ethanol and corn syrup. Ethanol and corn syrup. Don't get those two wrong. While police said numerous train cars derailed, BNSF said in a statement that it was about 22 cars. The transportation secretary, Pete Buttigieg, told CNN that about 14 of those cars were carrying hazardous material, and Buttigieg also said that if he was there, those trains would never have crashed because he would have just stopped them and put them right back on the track before they fell over. That's apparently what is expected of him. Anyway, Buttigieg also
said.
That it is not what he said. Correct. Yeah. Buttigieg also said on Twitter that the Federal Railroad Administration was on the ground in the town. I'm surprised that he didn't say everything is on track. And
exactly. That was an opportunity there.
I guess you don't make light of
that's
any
true.
of this. At any rate, every article always devolves into mentioning East Palestine, East Palestine, Ohio. I will say that right one of these days. They always throw that in there to give, I'm not sure what, weight, gravitas to the article, that they're aware that something else bad happened somewhere else. So at any rate, wow, these firefighters are right here, but just like looking at something when there's actual fire right here.
Right, and we don't know if anything's explosive in there. I mean, they're
Well, we do
almost
know
touching the train.
it's ethanol. It's ethanol.
Well,
It's very,
right,
very
right.
explosive.
Yeah, but I don't know if corn syrup is.
Corn syrup might
Might
burn
be, yeah.
like a candle kind of thing. I don't think it's explosive, but ethanol definitely. That's an open flame, maybe 12 feet away from their head, and they're just like looking
Maybe
down at the
that far.
ground.
Exactly.
I mean, that takes some serious gramba to sit there and just go. I mean, they're firefighters, so they're paid to be heroes. But that's that's pretty amazing, man. Good on them. I'd be sitting there with a hose before I just stand there. I'd be spraying that thing, at least throwing a snowball.
And I wouldn't want to be right there in case something exploded because you're going to be right in the radius.
Yeah, man, that's wild. All right, so the next article, and I guess the penultimate one. Man misses vacation and loses thousands after puppy destroys his passport. The article says, note to self, when getting a puppy and going on holiday, keep important documents safe, said one commenter on the viral post. This is an article over at newsweek.com by Alice Gibbs. Apparently no, this isn't the article. This isn't a video that is actually representative of the article's content because it just says top 5 causes of disobedience in dogs.
I mean, it's related to the topic, but it's not the dog with the passport.
Yeah, if the topic was just the dog, but it's not. Jacob lives, and this person apparently, Jacob lives in Washington State and shared the nightmare moment on Reddit's mildly infuriating subreddit, where it had over 44,000 upvotes and thousands of comments. In the picture, a passport sits in a dog bed with chewed strewn pages around it. Wow, that's a hard sentence to say. Anyway, they were packing all of their clothes and set the passport on top of their duffel bag to make sure that they wouldn't forget it. And then he apparently grabbed it when he wasn't looking, carried on packing for another 20 minutes, came out to find him eating it.
Oh, that's bad. You need to describe the picture for the podcast.
So it's the pages are it looks like somebody shredded the document. But you can obviously see that the dog actually did this. I mean, there's chew marks. A whole half of the back page of the passport is gone. The P in half of the A of passport is gone. That whole top corner is. The dog had a field day, absolute field day. So yay. But apparently, it says U.S. government rules state that a damaged passport is invalid and cannot be used for international travel. You never can get a passport replaced that fast. So they were supposed to board a plane 8 hours later to Paris, then spend 2 weeks traveling around Europe. But he was unable to make the flight without his travel documents and instead was forced to skip the trip. Couldn't get any refunds because they did not get travel insurance. Wow.
Ouch.
Wow. Was unable to go. That time window was a good break in taking time off of work. So they got no joy. They basically lost everything. One's mistake is a life lesson to others. Thank you for your sacrifice, said one Redditor. And note to self, when getting a puppy and going on holiday, keep important documents safe and out of reach of the baby dog. Yeah, I would probably not have left my passport just sitting somewhere, except for, you have your go bag, you have like a getaway drawer. If you are planning on going somewhere in 8 hours and you're packing, I would have probably had my passport inside the bag that I was taking already ready to go, and then pack that. Anyway, I guess the puppy just said, no, I don't want you to go. Please stay. That's not the puppy, by the way. So, would you have let your passport out of your sight if you were a human being and going on a flight?
No, I mean, I think the passport is probably the only thing that you really can't replace. I would say like your passport and your credit card, maybe, and maybe your keys, depending on how you're getting to the airport. Like all those things, you'd have them ready to go, secure. You'd have, triple check them. So I don't even understand leaving the passport out, even without the dog, because it could have fallen off the bag or something.
Yeah, exactly. Who knows? Something bad could happen. All right, so let's move on to the next article. And this is one where you just kind of go, so wait, you're telling me it's somebody else's responsibility? This one is in a new channel that was just reactivated called Rounders Gear, which is code for high quality equipment for tabletop gaming, professional gaming, not role-playing games, but like sports games like poker and other tabletop gambling, essentially. But it's about the gear and stories, basically the people, places, and things. And discovered this today. Quite interesting, right? British millionaire sues Star Sports Sportsbook for not controlling his betting urges.
Maybe that means that he didn't control his own
Personal
behavior.
responsibility says what? Scott O'Brien, a wealthy entrepreneur in the UK, is taking legal action against a high-end sportsbook because he wasn't able to control himself. He alleges that Star Sports failed to safeguard him from his own compulsive gambling behavior, even though he knew decades ago that he shouldn't gamble. Between September 2018 and March 2019, according to Racing Post, the recycling magnate states he went on a reckless gambling spree and lost in excess of £100,000 through Star Sports. However, he acknowledges having spent much more than that. So they have these little sections here. For whatever reason, the aggregator grabbed a lot of this article, but I'm going to be purging most of it manually. I don't like it when the gatherer grabs this much. It's actually provided by the news source, and I typically truncate it. It's actually configured to be truncated, but for whatever reason, it didn't this time. It might be because they allow a whole lot of their information to be received. At any rate, during the court hearing, O'Brien admitted that his behavior became more extreme after he sold Pulp Friction, which, wow, his recycling, paper recycling company for $9 million or 11.11 million US dollars in 2012. As a result of his continued betting, he spent more than 500,000 US dollars or 400,000 pounds at Star Sports Mayfair betting shop in London. Pardon me one second. I wonder if you could hear all of that. For whatever reason, the microphone said that it was muted again. The software needs to be fixed. You can hear me though, right?
I can hear you.
Yeah. O'Brien confesses to having mentioned his compulsive betting habits to one of the employees at the store and strongly feels that it was their responsibility and the responsibility of the company to prohibit him from betting or at least place some restrictions. Come on, man.
I don't have a lot of sympathy here. I mean, I understand people have addictions to various things, but this is a person going in and placing bets or whatever.
Interesting. So Gillespie called the claim ludicrous and added that the staff had no basis for assuming that O'Brien was dealing with any serious gambling addiction. He also threw doubt over whether O'Brien was really a gambling addict or just trying to beat the system. According to Gillespie, O'Brien didn't visit the Star Sports store frequently, making only 17 trips within the 6-month period. Additionally, he had more profits than losses until March 30th, 2019, according to the sports book's records. Gillespie asserted that Star Sports has repeatedly exerted maximum effort to promote responsible gambling requirements. However, he also noted that bookmakers are not generally obligated to safeguard gambling addicts from the aftermath of their addiction. That last statement might cause some controversy, especially in light of the current sentiment toward gambling. Yeah, I can see that might cause a problem. So this article is over at casino.org, and I will reiterate basically the implication here. If you do have a gambling addiction, then seek assistance. Don't spend beyond your means. Don't go into debt to satiate your urge to gamble. It's tough, I know, but don't give in. Reach out to somebody and let them know, hey, I have this urge to gamble. Help me stop. It's very easy to say stuff like this, but when you are in that mode and you want to spend beyond your means, I understand it's very tough. So reach out. I don't have contact information for various locations around the world if you do suffer from this. But there are always resources around. So just reach out, just do a Google search, and it'll geolocate you and actually give you a resource within reason. That said, casino.org is the source. Eric Gibbs is the author of the article. And it basically says what we just talked about, but provides even more context. It says the courtroom drama will continue probably for a few more weeks. The final verdict will depend on whether the judge determines that an adult should be responsible for his own actions or if a business has to play the role of parent. I'm starting to think that the author of this is maybe writing articles for casino.org and Above the Law.
Yeah, it's a similar tone. I like it.
Yeah, I dig that.
And I also want to mention there was an article yesterday in the same channel. It says Australia to clamp down on video games that include simulated gambling. We didn't include it in the episode, but it's just interesting that there's kind of a focus on it and at least a view that it's not a good thing, etc. So it'll be interesting to see how this case goes, because I think there's a societal kind of cloud over gambling, I guess is the way to put it.
Yeah, I mean, the last time it was all the rage was probably 8 to 10 years ago, when Texas Hold'em became really popular, and since then that's probably the trailing end. It started trending down, but people who are online a lot will probably notice that there's less and less on Twitch gambling and stuff, because a lot of the slots stuff is not really legit. Some of it is, but not all of it. And because it kind of hero worships overextending, people sometimes give the streamer more money so that they can gamble more. And so by proxy, gambling is being encouraged, and no streaming service wants to be part and parcel to that. It opens themselves up for litigation. Well, you're actually encouraging people to give the streamer money so that you're facilitating this exchange. And it might lead to a lawsuit if it hasn't already. I just don't know about it. But I do notice that the newest service for streaming, Kick, has a very large contingent, at least in my estimation. My opinion is that they've got a large contingent of streamers, or at least a large audience associated with it. Video gambling, video slots, video poker, things like that. So the people that I've spoken to about Kick, they're not interested in going over to Kick because of that. Not sure other people are interested in that. So, I mean, I've got an account over there, but I don't know if I'll ever stream over there. At any rate, adults, you have to be responsible for your actions. So there is a question out there. So if you are watching the video stream of this on YouTube, let me know what you would do. Okay, so that is it for the night. And we ran long, but I hope you enjoyed the articles and our banter about it. If you go back to the front page of ohmTown and mash the sign that says ohmTown, you'll get a whole new set. And, well, of course, everybody is talking about Trump and other things going on.
Well, I see hoverboards are back in the news, which I hadn't seen for a while. And I also see we have a verdict in the Gwyneth Paltrow trial.
Yeah, apparently she won. So I never really bothered paying attention to it. I watched some of the actual trial, and it was really what is really happening here kind of a thing. The vibe that I got was that it was an accident, and accidents happen. It's hard to blame somebody for wiping out on skis.
Isn't that one of the hazards of skiing? I didn't follow any of the trials, so I have no idea. But
yeah, because I figured that I thought that there were certain things like you should have insurance if you're skiing, and if you get in an accident, then your insurance covers it. Is there pain and suffering involved? Yes, absolutely. But it's a sport. And so unless there is willful harm being done, like I aimed for that person and it's really obvious that I aimed for that person, then this is like a what do they call it? When no party is to blame, a no at fault accident, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, I figured that's where it would end, but it turned into actual litigation against Gwyneth Paltrow, and was actually characterized as a money grab by this person. But I didn't think that I don't know, I didn't perceive it as being either of that. Just weird. The one that I like is this chef of a 3 Michelin starred restaurant has a philosophy that can be applied to any career. By the way, Michelin stars were created so that people would drive. It actually is from the tire company.
I did not know that, but I learned that actually from you previously.
Oh, wow. Hey, look, everybody. I'm teaching an AI. All right, everybody. That's it for tonight. We'll see you tomorrow. We'll change the colors. Be sure to go and vote over at ohmTown.showbot.tv for the articles that you like. We'll keep it in mind for the topics that we select each day. And the mayor is refining the classifications so that we can maybe, if we get to the point where we've got enough source material, we will have each day a more focused selection of news depending on the day. So with that in mind, I'm going to say thanks everybody for coming by. See you over at YouTube in the podcast and Discord and ohmTown.com, of course. You want to say bye, AI?
Bye, AI. Good night, ohmTown citizens. We'll see you tomorrow.
Bye-bye.